Wrecking Ball, it was actually quite an easy shoot. It was just Miley at that time. I don't know anything about you. I don't really know who you are, but Christina told me that she wants you to come in and be her day-to-day manager, and I just need to make the deal happen. So can you come to my office tomorrow?
Oh my God.
In the late 90s, early 2000s, when music videos were everything, the labels would be like, okay, we're putting out, the next single for Rihanna is Diamonds. Here's the budget we want to spend. I had produced Dirty with David LaChapelle. I would just always wait tables on them, and they were producers. And finally one day they were like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know, I just want to work in film. And he was like, Coleen, it's the one job that you don't need to go to school for. When I first started Maavven, I actually was like, I don't want to do any publicity. Coming from a poor family, I'm going to make my own money. I'm going to become successful.
Changing my destiny.
I've always been working to empower others, their potential and their vision. All happening here in Mexico. There's such a spiritual power in this country. The solution is right around the corner. It's just could look a little different.
Welcome to Game Changers. Today's episode is truly special. I'm recording this introduction from my bunker here in Guadalajara after spending a few unforgettable days in Maavven 33, a sanctuary for creativity in the heart of Mexico City that has become our home whenever we record there. My guest, Coleen Haynes, is one of the most influential creative producers of our time. For more than 2 decades, she has shaped the visual language of modern culture, collaborating with icons like Beyoncé, Rihanna, Christina Aguilera, Katy Perry, Miley Cyrus, Justin Timberlake, Robin Thicke, Pitbull, and her lifelong friend, David LaChapelle. Her fingerprints are behind some of the most defining visual moments in music history. Wrecking Ball, Blurred Lines, Fighter, Big Pimpin', Mirrors, Dirty. Stories that told through images have become the part of who we are. But what truly makes Coleen a game changer isn't her list of credits, it's her purpose. She spent her life protecting the creative process and the emotional well-being of the artists who inspire the world. In this conversation recorded at Maavven 33, the creative sanctuary she has curated in Mexico City, we explore her journey through the lens of my framework, CREATE. Clarity, resilience, execution, authenticity, transformation, and empowerment. From the young woman who drove from Atlanta to LA chasing a dream to the visionary who now builds sanctuaries where others can dream again. Coleen Haynes reminds us that true success isn't about making the world watch. It's about teaching how to see. I'm Manuel Cosillo, and this is my conversation with Coleen Haynes, a true game changer. I'm very, very happy to finally have this conversation. I've had the privilege of having great connection and conversations with you over the past 5 years. And that moment, Paul, our dear friend, introduced us, and magic started happening in so much amazing ways, has been a true privilege and delight. You've dedicated your life into shaping visual culture, but beneath all that spectacle, what first called you into this world?
Well, I grew up in the South, in Atlanta, Georgia. And my family didn't come from money. They didn't come from the arts or anything, actually. My dad was a Baptist preacher. And I remember when I was probably like 15, I had to sneak in my closet to listen to the Beastie Boys had just come out with, what is that? Their first album with the plane on it.
I love the Beastie Boys, but I don't remember about the plane.
It's not Sabbath. Oh gosh. But anyway, they came out, they dropped their first album. I had it on a cassette, and it was, I bought it at the store, and I had to go into my closet and hide and listen to the music because my dad believed that it was secular music and it was going to, ruin us as pastors' kids. That was kind of my first, I don't know, the memory that I think about my fascination with music in general, and from there just kind of continued more from a musical love, I think. And then I was waiting tables, and I don't know, I just had this dream to move to California, and I didn't know exactly what position I wanted to be, I just knew I wanted to work in film, period. It was like film and music were my two favorite things. And I didn't even know the difference between a director versus a producer at the time. But I had a catalyst of an ex-boyfriend that I was dating that moved back to California. We were dating in Atlanta. And so I was 21 years old and drove out there to see him for the summer. And just, as soon as I walked into LA, it was like, wow. Oh my gosh. It was just...
Was your first time?
It was my first time. And I was just so fascinated and fell in love with it right away. And I walked, I came back to Atlanta and I just knew, I was like, this is where I have to go. I have to move there and I have to just, if I'm there, it was very much like Pretty Woman had just come out, maybe, the whole like, what's your dream, baby? Everybody's got dreams, that scene where the guy's walking across the street in LA. And that always rang out in my mind. And I was like, yes, LA is the city of dreams. Like, I have this dream. I don't want to go to college. In fact, I dropped out after one semester, basically just to make my mom and dad mad because they got a divorce and I was just pissed. So yeah, I was just like a rebel. And then I went to LA and I was just like, that's where I want to go. So I came back, I quit my job, put all my clothes in my car, and I drove across country from Georgia to California over a course of 2 weeks. And
how was that drive?
It was amazing. Like I figured out cities along the way where I could stay with like a family friend because I didn't have a lot of money, obviously. And, but I just took my time. I remember driving through like Arizona, Colorado, like just really having this first time for me, like driving through and across America. It was just so beautiful, certain states, It
was a journey.
It was a journey,
a trip.
Sure.
Yeah.
My parents thought I lost my mind and, my dad was convinced I was going to end up in LA and work the corner as a prostitute. So it was like, that is not happening. But I came to LA and I pulled into town and I didn't know a single person. And one of the girls that I waited tables with in Atlanta was like, my really dear friend lives in LA. She has a clothing store on the 3rd Street Promenade. Maybe you could crash with her on her couch when you first get there until you can figure out, where to live, find an apartment, etc. So I did. I called her up. I didn't know her. I was like, hey, Stacy said, maybe I could stay with you. And crashed her place for like a month. She got me my first waiting tables job in LA, which was at Jerry's Famous Deli. And unbeknownst to me at the time, I didn't know how big that deli was. It was in Beverly Hills, right across from Cedars-Sinai Hospital.
Yeah.
So I started waiting tables there. And of course, it was like the biggest, busiest deli of Los Angeles. Like all the celebrities would go there. Everybody would go there because the doctor's across the street from Cedars-Sinai. I didn't know this, but how lucky I was to get a job there.
The right place.
Yeah. And so they start you off in the graveyard shift. So I would go to work at like 11 o'clock at night and get off around 6 a.m. in the morning. But it turned out to be the most amazing shift because that's when all the rock stars and actresses would come after partying. And there was one of the biggest clubs right next door that was like everybody was going to at the time. So we would get that entire group of people coming in for, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., whatever, food. So I was just a kid in the candy store going home every day and being like,
oh my God,
calling my friends or it was the height of the Roseanne Barr show. So I waited on Roseanne and Tom Arnold and I was like, oh my God. And then Lenny Kravitz came in one night with his 2 female drummers. And he's just like, when he still had his crazy long dreads. I mean, wow, talk about, I was blown away. Seal and Heidi Klum. It was just multiple, and I just was like calling my friends and being like, oh my God.
This is what I came for.
Yeah, this is what I came here for. Like thinking like, this is it. This is the dream. And then literally after about, I guess it was about 3 months or 4 months, there were these producers. I didn't know that. I mean, I knew they were producers, but I had I was very naive to the difference of, production for music videos versus commercials versus films versus short film documentaries. It was all kind of the same to me, And so these guys came in and I would just always wait tables on them and they were producers. And finally one day they were like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. I just want to work in film. I just moved here to work in film. I'll do anything. I'll PA or whatever. And so they're like, well, actually, our production coordinator just quit like 2 weeks ago. I'm sorry, they were supposed to shoot like a week later and they were like, she just dropped out. We're doing a short film. Maybe you can just jump right in. And I was like, yeah, but I don't know how to production coordinate. I don't even know what that word means. Like, are you sure?
What do I have to do?
What do I have to do? And they're like, it's okay, we'll teach you. So literally for like 3 weeks, I worked on this film, this independent film with them. And I would go to work at like 8 a.m. in the morning to the production office, get done around 7, 8 o'clock at night, because obviously you never know in production how many hours you have to work. And then I would come home, sleep for like an hour, change, shower, go to Jerry's and do the graveyard shift from 11 to 6 o'clock in the morning. Wow. And then get up the next morning, get up in the morning, come home, shower, sleep for another hour, go work production. I didn't care because it was just...
But you were living the dream.
It was for me. It was like, this is exactly why I came out here,
And learning in the process.
So after that was done, I was able to quit Jerry's. And, just from there, I went on to do a couple of different films with them. And I just kept learning, knowledge in production. And slowly just moved up the ladder and fell into producing. But really, to be honest, I didn't know the job title descriptions, but I really thought I was going to be a director first. And then the journey just took me into producing. So.
And to understand for everybody that's watching and doesn't understand what a producer does,
right?
Now that you understood it and developed a career into it, what is exactly what a producer does in music videos?
Right. Well, I came through, I coordinated and then went into production management and then got bumped into producing. And, I think my climb was very, very fast. And the reason why, when I look back to it, is because I thought I was going to be a creative, but I already just had that creative vibe around me in general. And so I became known in the director world as a creative producer. Mm-hmm. I think that's very different than just producing. I mean, they both require obviously a lot of patience and
management,
keeping cool and managing crews. I mean, your crews could be up to over 300 people, or it could be a small group of 20. But you are, you're making the deals, you're looking at the budget, you're making sure that things stay on track from a monetary perspective, but also a creative perspective. And really depending on how many, I think when I started to get into music videos, I was really, really good at the politics, because that does happen between, you've got your director and you've got your artist. It could be somebody as big as a Rihanna or whoever that's going to have an opinion about what you're shooting and how you're editing the process or whatever. They're going to have a say. Yeah, they're going to have a say. So then you've got representation around that artist, which is, record company and management folks. Then you've got the artists themselves. Then you've got the director who I would be producing for and making sure that they are getting what they need to capture, keeping the job on budget, and then making everybody play really good in the sandbox together. So it's a very layered...
Your first contact or your main client in that is the director or the artist?
It's both. I think that is definitely one reason why I excelled very quickly and then stepped into executive producer, because not everybody can be a managed producer. That's when you get as just a line producer, you really are working mainly for the director, but you still have to have the skill set to deal with the politics on set, And I think I just did that extremely well, and then was promoted to executive producer to run music video divisions at two of the largest production companies in the business at the time. And that is much more, you're more in a representation role of the director at that point. It's not so much in the trenches of producing the actual job, but you're definitely, you're dealing with all the above the line talent. So you do have to answer to the client that's obviously writing the check, the artist, the musician, and the director.
Yeah, and keeping a balance between obviously the creative vision behind the project,
Yeah.
the budget, the appreciation of how it's actually from the storyboard to the actual execution
Exactly.
turning out, it becomes quite difficult to manage and stressful. I mean,
Yeah.
today you're managing. Before all this success and before the titles, what did your dream actually look like there in the diner in LA? Did it become what it is now and what you've developed into?
For sure. I mean, I was so young when I was waiting tables at that time. It just, to me, I didn't have the clearest part of my vision down at that point. I just knew that I wanted to be where it was all happening. And as long as I was in it, I would figure it out.
Being at the right place,
Yeah.
surrounded with the right people.
Yeah, and just being in the town. I mean, I think at that point, LA had such a mystery about it, and it really was a destination point for people around the world. You know, I don't know that it has that same.
It has changed.
It has changed a lot, but back then, you know, we didn't have. Well,
The internet.
it's really good advice. I was gonna say we didn't even have the internet. We definitely did not have Instagram, or not even our phones weren't even the iPhones at that point. So I think what's beautiful about that is that there was like people, because I just, you know, of course I was friends with all these younger people that all came out there to follow their dreams, whether it was a dream of acting or a dream of being a musician and making it as, you know, being famous or whatever that meant. And I think because we didn't have this fast transmission of information at that time, that it kept LA very, like, you had to go there to experience it. You couldn't live it through influencers or people, shooting videos. You wouldn't see the Santa Monica Pier unless you flew there.
Yeah.
That was really that time period. So I think it was just, again, for me, like I didn't have the same speed of knowledge that we have now that, this young generation can learn anything on Google or whatever. You can just type in and see what you want to experience. We didn't have that ability. So unless you were there, you didn't know what was happening, or you didn't know, you had to experience it yourself, So I don't know. I just feel like my vision back then was it was just a very young, naive love of
Art.
the idea of California, the idea of being in film and music and being around talent, but not knowing exactly how I was going to necessarily line it up and get there,
And how important has been collaboration and proximity and surrounding yourself with the right people, connecting, taking risks in your development?
There's this, I had started doing PA work in Atlanta when I was waiting tables there, just very minimally on like some car commercials. And I'll never forget this audio guy, because I was like 18, 19. I had just dropped out of college. And I'll never forget, he said this thing to me on set, because of course I was just so hungry to understand like what everybody's position was, and what do you do on set? Just asking questions. I'll never forget, he said to me, because I think at the time I was like conflicted about the fact that I had dropped out of college, and do I need to have an education to work in production or filmmaking? And he was like, Coleen, it's the one job that you don't need to go to school for. He was like, it's actually a waste of time and money, because until you can just get in it, you can't really
start to
you can try to read textbook about all these production, issues that will happen and things that will go wrong. But until you're doing it, it's just like getting into production is the best school you could be in. And he was like, one PA today is a producer the next time you see them in a year later. It can happen like that. It's about having the right person that wants to invest of you or give you, a chance to step up into a new position. So just like that, really rang in my head, which gave me my confidence to just go after my dream and move out there and just be in it,
You've worked through some of the most intense projects in pop culture. I mean,
yes.
Wrecking Ball was a huge success, but it became also very controversial, as well as Blurred Lines. What's a moment from those productions that truly tested your resilience?
You know, Wrecking Ball, it was actually quite an easy shoot. It was because it was just so simple. Like we didn't have, it was just Miley. At that time, it was like Miley, it was Hannah Montana coming out as Miley Cyrus. And she had already done We Can't Stop, which I also had produced with Diane. So she'd already dropped her new look with her, her
more bold
hawk and all that stuff, And I think what Terry Richardson did in that video was really lean on his lighting and his photography style. And so the concept was quite easy. The controversy wasn't in the shoot. The controversy was
afterwards.
After, with her and what she was wearing and all that good stuff. So, and that was, I wasn't really, because I wasn't
part of it.
Her, yeah, I wasn't so much a part of it. Blurred lines, that is an interesting question. Sadly, actually, Diane Martel, the director who directed that I represented for close to 15 years, just passed away a week ago. And we did some of the most iconic work together, that being one of those videos. And it was an interesting thing because I've been going back to look at her work and
remembering
a memorial for her in LA, in New York. So just remembering all these, like, the videos and those moments, it was, I think the hardest thing about that video was the girls not being subjectified by the boys in that video. Because at that time, all those guys were very, like, at the height, Robin, Pharrell, and they're dudes, right? And so, and the girls are hot, and they were naked. I mean, we had like, so Diane was amazing on that video set because, like, if it wouldn't have been a female director, I don't think it does such an incredible, I mean, to her credit as a director and a female director, like, and I remember she would just be yelling at the boys on the set, like, don't look at her like that, or whatever, like, like really being protective of them. But then when she had to shoot them naked, I mean, they felt comfortable around her, and they also felt like they were being protected. And it really, you can feel on camera in that video that there's a very fine line that was danced, and I don't think that could have been done with a male director, to be honest.
And it became an elegant way to portray. It was
an elegant, not objectifying, concept of a video. And then just to see, wow, I mean, we had no idea at the time how big that song was going to be. Or just, and then the way that she did it, I mean, it was just so huge.
Yeah, because that's what I was also going to say. In the moment you're working on the video, the song hasn't been released yet. And
right.
I mean, you have a sensibility to understand, okay, somebody else already chose this song to produce a video, and it has a high chance to become a success. But you've been involved in videos that have become really legendary successes.
I mean, it's crazy. I always would say that, I did some in the late 90s, early 2000s when music videos were
in the height of video.
Everything, MTV, VH1. I mean, I would sit in my office and we'd have like 4 TVs and we'd have every single, music television station, not even like with the sound down, just because we had to sit there rolling calls and be watching what every single artist or director was doing, I was like working in the stock market or something at the time. It was just insane. But no, that was an interesting part of that business at the time, because obviously the record labels would have tested the music from someone creating an album, and they would, try their best to figure out, what songs they would choose to be singles. Because most big artists, I mean, you were lucky if you did. I mean, you had to be like Madonna to do 5 to 7 videos off an album. Otherwise, your label is testing the music and picking maybe 2 to 3
out of 12 or 14 tracks.
10, yeah, exactly, 10 to 14 tracks on an album. And so the budgets would be allocated to whatever songs they think would be, worthy of singles or whatever, and testing them on radio. Because at the time that we didn't have Spotify or Apple Music, or it wasn't streaming. It was just radio. That's it.
And I mean, it has changed a lot, and we'll go into that. But back then, once they chose, okay, this is going to be the single, how was the process of all that creativity before going into production?
So basically then the label would decide what would be track 1, track 2, track 3, or whatever the order would be that they would release those singles for the artist. And I'm sure the artist had a say in it too. You know, we weren't part of that process. So we didn't have any idea how many singles they were going to produce and what order they were going to do them in. So we would get, as a production company, which would have a roster of creative talent, you know, the labels would be like, okay, we're putting out, you know, the next single for Rihanna is Diamonds, and we're going to send it out. Here's the budget we want to spend. Here's kind of the creative direction. If Rihanna had any creative direction, sometimes they would just be like, we don't want to give any direction. We just want to work with David LaChapelle. And we trust David LaChapelle as a creative will come up with the crazy, wild idea. You know, that was like a singular way that it would go down.
And gave creative liberty to do it.
Give the creative the liberty. Or they would say, you know, whether the label had a list of directors or the artist had a list of directors, they would send the track out to maybe, I mean, if you were a big artist, you would be more selective and be more kind of very specific about how you want to work with. Otherwise, for younger bands and stuff, you might have like 10 to 15 directors all writing ideas at the same time. And you pitching them, and you would have a deadline, and then, you know, usually you'd get down to like 2 or 3 ideas that the label would sort through and pick their favorites and then hand them over to the artist. And then it was just, you know, you never knew who the artist was going to choose. So it was very competitive at that time.
In an industry that's built so much on pressure and deadlines, how did you learn to protect your own energy and not just your artist and the people you worked with?
Well,
I'm still learning.
I know, still learning. It's been such an interesting shift. I was talking to a friend about this the other day. In my younger years, I mean, I was so motivated to climb the ladder in LA with my career and opportunity. I mean, the way that how the speed with how the opportunities came my way and the way that I moved was so fast. And I think I definitely just had a motivation. At that time, my motivation coming from a poor family was really like, I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to make my own money. I'm going to become successful.
Change all my destiny.
I'm going to like buy my mom and dad a house. You know what I mean? You have that like that perspective. And so that really drove me.
Hunger.
Yeah, hunger. And the way that I would deal with stress or just to give myself the energy that I needed all day, because like I said, it was like working at the stock market. I mean, I would get up at 7 a.m., you know, run at 6 a.m. So I did running and physical exercise, because then after that was over in the morning, and that was my only private time with myself, I was rolling calls all the way as I would drive to the office. I'd be, you know, switch from my in-speaker system in my car, get out of my car, just like clueless, like pick up the phone, you know what I mean? Walk up the stairs, go into my office, sit down, then hang up my cell, switch to my landline with a headset. And it was just like, boom, boom, boom. Line 3, line 2 is this director, this record company, this, you know. So physical exercise was the way that I dealt with, I don't know, that first like 20 years. And it wasn't until I started my own company, Maavven, which is 10 years actually this year. It'll be 11 next year. That was the first time I went to dinner with a friend, because of course I didn't know anything about starting a company. And she had my friend Catherine Fraser. She's incredible. She runs Biz3, which is like the biggest, you know, publicist company for artists. She at the time she was one of the, I think, co-presidents or vice president of Oslo, which was Skrillex's label. And then she had a management company where she managed a handful of like indie artists. And she was 2 sons, single mom, and just like, wow.
To Hollis.
Yeah, to Hollis, exactly. So I'll never forget, I had just left Black Dog. I had just quit. It was my final day. And I was like, Catherine, would you please go to dinner with me? I just want to like pick your brain about what the hell am I about to get into with starting a company. So we were having...
So you quit thinking about starting your own company?
Yeah.
You were tired? What made you make that shift?
There was a catalyst for that, which I'll tell you in a second. But really quickly with Catherine's conversation, I I just looked at her and I was like, please tell me what your secret of success is to be the CEO of 3 companies, not just 3 any companies, 3 massively successful companies, and a single mom to 2 boys. And she looked at me and she said, Coleen, it's going to sound really cheesy, but the secret, I live by it, and TM meditation. And I was like, I was like, well, I've tried meditation. I haven't never been able to crack that thing. And I get to like, I'm sitting there like, this is not working for me. I have 500 emails to check. Like, I got to go. So my energy was protected by the like really intense physical workouts back then. And it wasn't until COVID when I got into meditation hardcore that I was like,
Joe Dispenza.
this is why people, when they get to this level of their career, meditation is everything. And now if I have a choice between, if I run out of time during the day, if I have to choose between my physical workout or my mental workout, I choose mental first. Because it really is like the only way to really
balance everything
and create that, barrier, like you said, about juggling projects and the stress and everything that goes around it.
And going back to that shift from working for Black Dog and deciding to open your own company and become a business owner.
It was, so I was working at Black Dog, which was really Scott's music video division of his company, of RSA. And I had just been there for 3 years at the time. And in that 3 years, I had rebranded, all the visual logo of Black Dog. I completely re-signed the roster. I brought in Floria Sigismundi, Stephen Klein, Rankin, Diane Martell, more, but Terry Richardson, just really, Barnaby Clay, really had changed the whole roster of directors. And then in that course, that was probably like the first year. And then those 2 years were the 2 years that we did Wrecking Ball, Blurred Lines, Justin Timberlake, Mirrors, Britney's Bitch, which she had just come back from her comeback. It was like her first video back from
the comeback
for her one of her comebacks. And so anyways, we had just, it was just a moment in time. I couldn't have even foreseen that all those songs were going to fit into this 1 year period, and that the directors that were going to do all of that was directors that I represented.
Yeah.
And so it was MTV Awards, and we had set 18 nominations that year between all those videos. And I remember my friend was like, we should look up and see if there's been one single company that's had that many MTV nominations ever. And turns out it was Propaganda. There's a massive production company that I started off working as a coordinator. It had closed, but that had, the most incredible talent. David Fincher, Stefan Sednawi, Michelle Gondry, Jonas Ackerlin, Johan Rank. I mean, really
icons.
Man, And so 1 year they had 15 nominations, but no one had ever beat that record until
you guys did.
Yeah. So we went to the MTV Awards. We did a big after party. I collaborated with Miley and Terry and Pharrell. And Daft Punk came. That was the year that Daft Punk had won. And they came to the thing. Anyway, it was just
it's 2014.
Landslide, just wow factor moment in my career. Just like, oh my God, can't believe I just did all that. That's crazy. And then my friend who worked at RSA in the commercial division, he after the MTV Awards was over, he was like, Coleen, when you really look at everything you just did for Black Dog in such a short amount of time, you should own a piece of what you're doing there, what the IP is, And I was like, oh, that's an interesting idea. And then I kind of thought about it and talked to some other people within the company. And, the Scotts, they're one of the most incredible film companies in the business, families. And that's their company. Their company is shared between, Tony and Ridley, Tony who's no longer, and the children. It's not, nobody.
Family company.
It's a family-owned company. And so when I just thought about that for a second, I was like, well, he's not wrong that I should own a piece, but I know that that's not really what the opportunity here is. But which, by the way, they treat their employees one of the best companies in the business. They are so great,
generous and
generous and kind, and the insurance and all that stuff. But it was just kind of a moment for me to say, well, if I do want to own what I do, maybe the next step is to jump off the cliff and step out and start my own thing. So that was the catalyst.
A big step.
It was huge. No one gives you a handbook on starting your own company, just like no one really tells you how awful and horrific childbirth is until you have the baby. And then you forget about all the terribleness that happened because you have this unconditional love of this gorgeous child that you created. And I think it's the same about starting a company. It's absolutely horrific and lonely. And like, you just do so many mistakes before you figure out what to do right. But I always say that now looking back, learning what not to do is as equally as important as learning what to do.
Even more.
Absolutely. Even more, to be honest. So as hard as it was, when it finally launched and came out, and I had this beautiful roster of artists that were very multifaceted. And at that time, it was a company, there was no company that existed in the production business that signed artists that were not only individually multifaceted, but maybe someone was more stronger coming from painting or more stronger coming from graffiti, street art, or yes, this person was a director, or maybe this person was a photographer, and they could do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But it was like the first time, I'd signed people that were choreographers and crossed them over into directing. So it was really like people at first were like, what the hell is Coleen doing? That is the weirdest roster ever. But it was very niche at that time.
And very multifaceted.
Yeah, and very multifaceted. And it actually made starting that company super complicated for me at first, just because I had to even prove myself even more or talk in format spaces that I wasn't actually coming from with all the knowledge, like the art scene or the art world. But then after 2 years, it just...
You figure it out.
It really exploded. So
traveling back early on, you managed Christina Aguilera.
yes.
How was that? And at that time, when managing creativity also meant managing a little bit of chaos or a lot. Yes. What did that period teach you about leadership and patience?
Wow. It was such a massive moment in Christina's career. It was her sophomore album that came out. And again, it was kind of the way things would happen in my life. I had produced Dirty with David LaChapelle. And actually I had done earlier videos with Christina, like when she was really young, out of, Genie in the Bottle days, basically, with like Wayne Isham, a huge director back then. But anyways, we did Dirty, and it was one of the biggest probably music video productions, like 4-day shoot. Talent was just, you've seen the video. It was like one of the best, most iconic videos. So we finished that shoot and we went to a wrap party, and Christina was like, you know what? I would like you to manage me. I was like, ha, 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 ha. That's nice thoughts. I was like, what is she talking about? Whatever. And then she's like, no, I'm being serious, Coleen. Like, I've seen what you did on this video. I think you should just come manage me. And I was like, oh, let's talk about that another time. I don't think that's realistic, So anyway, the next day I got a call from Irving Azoff, who's one of the biggest managers in the business, was her, main big manager. And he was like, so, I don't know anything about you. I don't really know who you are, but Christina told me that she wants you to come in and be her day-to-day manager, and I just need to make the deal happen. So can you come to my office tomorrow?
Oh my God. And if Irving Azoff calls you, you have to go.
And I remember calling David and being like, I don't know what to do about this. Like, I don't know how to manage anybody. Like, I don't even know what a manager is, like, or what the job, describes or whatever. So anyways, I went to his office. We had the meeting, and it was a good meeting, but I was very honest with him. I'm like, I need to be really honest with you. I'm a producer. I produce, but I've never managed anybody in my life. And I don't really know what this even entails or, whatever. And he's like, that's okay. He's like, this happened a lot in my life. He was like, that's okay. Don't worry about it. I'll teach you everything. He's like, Christina just told me to make the deal happen, and she wants you to walk out of here hired.
Wow.
So name a price and you start tomorrow. And I was like, oh my God, what am I...
But I have things to do tomorrow.
What is going on? I produce videos. I don't manage. Anyway, that was it. So when I started with her, Beautiful had just dropped on the radio, which obviously we know the history of how big that song was. And it was just off on Mr. Toad's wild ride. I mean, her career she
blew up.
She was the most massive pop female singer at that time, And it was incredible. And we did the Justified strip tour with Justin Timberlake. So we were on that for 2 years. And, really in the process, what I started to realize, because I came from producing and production, managing was just a lot of that. It was a lot of you're producing someone's life basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of it just being about video making, you're producing their press tour, you're producing their label meetings or, their photo shoots for magazines. It's just producing like a bigger, more variable scope of things. And then I think that's also, though, where I got to come in and, again, coming more in as a creative manager because I worked with all these big artists and directors. So I really was able to, that was the funnest part about the job, was just collaborating with her and also teaching her about certain directors that she didn't know. So, we chose Floria Sigismundi for Fighter, and Floria had only done Marilyn Manson videos, kind of like what Paul had, she was the rock girl. And Christina was her first pop star. Yeah. And that video was huge, So we just made these really awesome collaborations during that time with her in her career. And I don't know, it was one of my funnest moments ever.
How long did you
It was almost 3 years. So I started with her and I was 28 and like mid-30, I resigned and decided that she's so incredible. But when you're working when you're in management and you're working with someone that massive, your whole life becomes them. I remember I did a Elton John video with David LaChapelle as a director. And we had Elizabeth Taylor in it before she passed away. And I remember just being on set with David Furnish, who manages Elton. And at that time, we were just like talking about life, And he said, Coleen, I made a decision many years ago that I had to choose. Was I going to live my life with
for me or
for just me or for Elton? And I chose Elton. And I've been very happy with that decision. He's like, I live in a house on his property and I have a couple children around the world. And, but like, that's the decision that you have to make at someone that
and
level.
It's a big decision.
It's a big decision. And that stuck in my brain, And after the 2-year tour, I didn't see my family or my friends at all for 2 years, like nothing. And we came off and we had a huge break because she was going back in the studio. And we had just done like Rock the Vote. That was when, who was the guy that was running for president? Al Gore. Anyway, so we were going to all get it like a month off. And during that month, I just sat with myself and I was like, as much as I love her and it's been an insane experience to fly private jets around the world and sit front row with, all the Galliano and, Couture Week Paris. We were sitting, it was like Anna Wintour, Christina Aguilera, and me on the front row. It was like right when Tom Ford had left Gucci and, Christian Lacroix and Donatella and, it was an amazing experience.
Your dream came true.
Yeah, my dream came true, but I didn't feel like I could keep it up. And I really wanted to have a family at that time. And I was like, I can't even, there's no dating. I'm like constantly on planes and trains and automobiles. Like if I really want to choose my desire to be a mom and have a family, I can't stay on this crazy train,
It's absorbing. Totally.
Absolutely.
Totally. I mean, I was talking earlier with a really good friend who was a big part in my political consultancy era. And he was like, man, you should come back into this. I really enjoyed it, but it's very time consuming and very absorbing in every aspect to become a manager in a way of the campaign and the communication strategy of a politician. You've seen the toll that success can take on artists.
Yes.
What patterns made you realize that the industry needed places for restoration and not just production?
I think, well, I've thought about this a lot because sometimes I'm like, why was I in that crazy management position for those few years? It feels like a blip in time, But I know why now, because I really was, especially artists that are just hugely successful. There's a small bubble of people that are around them because you have to have that, because otherwise it's for safety, it's for privacy, it's for
protection.
But it just limits their interaction with the people, with the world, really. I mean, it's not, like, I remember when I first left the position, because she was so huge, we were always getting to airports and going underneath the airports if we were on a big public plane in first class, we would enter before anybody else would even get on the plane. I mean, stuff like that is just like, that's not real life, and never wait in line and whatever it was, And so I remember the first time I traveled home to see my uncle in Florida after, I was so excited to fly coach and be on Spirit Airlines. And they were like, ma'am, here's the menu. And I was like, I have this. And they're like, everything, it costs to have everything on the plane. I was like, well, that's great. I get so excited to pay for my Coca-Cola and my this, because I haven't had that in 2 years, But that experience is one of the main things I think that really stuck with me about how, and I witnessed what happened to Britney during that time. That was really a big moment for Britney too. I was so in the front lines and seeing how these young, huge pop stars or whatever were just being pushed in every direction to just keep going, keep taking every opportunity that comes. Don't stop. Don't say no to the money. Don't say no to this. Don't say no to that. So and it's not their fault, they're so excited at first to be, their dream is, of course, to become big and famous as a singer or to have your music be internationally global across the world. So you don't really know better, to not say no. So watching that happen with Christina was a huge insight into how artists are pushed in the business of the music business. And then, leaving and coming back to producing, and I came back and finished the film with David LaChapelle for Rise. And then I was offered the job to be an executive producer at HSI for 7 years, and then Black Dog I ran for 4 years. It was just another, because I was at such a high level executive position, I also was able to see the other side of the camera and what also was taking its tolls on the creatives that were doing visuals. So I think all those years and all those different positions really...
You had the opportunity to see the whole ecosystem.
The whole ecosystem. And then the funniest joke, well, not joke, but, the funny ha-ha for me anyway, was when COVID happened. And then I realized that I had put myself in the same pushing, never taking a break, never taking a moment to learn meditation or whatever it was. It wasn't until COVID that that was like, now you have to stop. You have no job to go to. You have nothing to shoot. What are you going to do? And so then coming to Mexico City and finding this house, but really realizing that even myself as this huge executive in the business had allowed myself to also be pushed for whatever reason, because I wanted the artist careers to be massive, or I liked the money that was coming in my pocket, or I liked the opportunities. I mean, we're human, so also just realizing that anybody in this position can be pushed to places of mental health.
And you become absorbed and into the hamster wheel.
The hamster wheel. And you don't know how to say no. You don't know how to get off sometimes. A lot of artists don't know how to get off that hamster wheel.
When you look back at those hard chapters, what did they teach you about yourself?
Definitely, I did not have boundaries. I'm a giver, so I just, I always was overgiving and not filling up my own cup. And I think that's been a huge lesson for me in the meditation work that I've been doing, is like, if I'm not good, I can't I cannot really truly be that great for my, anybody else in my life, especially people that I'm trying to sculpt their career. And so it's really given me perspective on the importance to just say no. Like, yeah, Sundays are my day. I don't want to look at my phone. If I don't answer your text, or maybe I will, but I really have to make that choice. You know what I mean? Like, Sunday's my day to go do whatever it is. I mean, it's simple things. Or like, I'm not looking at my phone after 8:00 at night because I want to be with my friends or my family. It's like those little things that I never implemented in my life until after COVID.
And starting to learn how they took a toll.
How they took a toll, but also seeing now the value of the things, everybody's boundaries is individual, seeing the value of what I've chosen to do for myself and how much that's changed my life. And even the way I work and the way that I deal with people, in the business.
You've produced and led projects for the biggest names in the world. What does structure mean to you in a world that thrives on spontaneity?
I'm probably the worst person to ask that question to. I really love the spontaneity. I have to be honest, especially when it comes to art. I've actually kind of always been a rebel against structure. I don't know if that's been good, if that's been for the better or not.
I'm asking it for a reason.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I think when I look back on like my younger version of myself in that time period, I was just operating in such a intuitive way. I think all those steps, like not going to school, throwing myself in production, throwing myself into LA with not knowing a single person, like there was no structure to, I would say, most of my big decisions in life, and that was my journey. That's not everybody's journey,
But the projects require structure.
The production, yes, you're right. The production does. You have to have structure to production if you're going to get anything shot, But I think I felt like I always hired a really good structured team to do the structure part.
You guys managed.
And I always kind of like was more pulled towards the artistic process, working with someone like David we've been working together for 28 years. It's so very rare in our industry to have that long of a continuing relationship with the same director and artist of his
caliber.
And I think, he never ceases to amaze me when I watch him do a job. But part of his process is that, and I've had to learn this as a producer, I have to give him so much space to create. It doesn't matter what we put on paper at the beginning of the job to even get the job. It will all change, probably 10 times, even to the point of him walking into set and being like, why is this set pink? I think it should be blue. Even though you said pink yesterday, we have to repaint it and shift our shots until the set is blue, So that type of people can, it makes, some people lose their mind, but I'm at a place where I've watched David and it's like, he paints in the moment and he gets, sometimes it sticks to the script, but a lot of times it doesn't. Or he sees, until he sees something, then he has this whole, new vision or a new detail to it. And it's so beautiful to watch. And I have learned, I guess this is probably a perfect example. Like, we have a really solid team that puts the structure of the production together, but I always make sure I have a contingency to let him play. And if I didn't have that, if I didn't work that way with him, I don't think I would still be working with him to this day.
Definitely. You give him the creative liberty to become the huge visionary that he is. He's one of the biggest creative minds of our time. And how has working with him been? Because it's like asking somebody that worked with one of the previous time greatest visual artists, a Picasso or a Dali or someone who worked with Warhol or Basquiat, and you've had this beautiful relationship, not only working with him, but also being friends and being a first-hand witness of his artistry. How that impacts your life?
Oh my gosh. I feel so much gratitude when I think of David because I had no influence of art in my childhood. None. Not a single art book. My parents never talked about anything, even a Michelangelo painting like that. There was just no teaching, no knowledge of that at all. It was very church and spiritual based, which I'm very grateful for now that I've found my spiritual path. But so I really feel like David has been my teacher.
Wow.
Yeah. And I feel like I've learned everything from him, not even just from, I started producing for him when I was 24 years old. I didn't know anything about the film business. I knew nothing. I didn't even know who he was when they asked me to come meet him to direct his, it would have been his second music video ever in his life. It was just transitioning from stills into film. So really knew nothing. I was a baby. So I have learned from him about lighting, composition, editing, art direction, fashion, literally everything. And on top of it, I would say he's my favorite storyteller because his experiences are just, they're so incredible. His stories are just beyond, times he had with Basquiat in New York City, that his studio, when he was taking pictures and coming up, that, when nobody knew who he was right at the birth of Keith Haring and Basquiat and Warhol and all those guys in New York City, so it's just...
The factory.
And him going to Studio 54 and, he's just, the stories are just incredible. So it has, even just from his own personal experiences of people in time periods that were very, so influential in art, in fashion, in photography, So, yeah, I don't know. I never stopped learning from him.
Is there a project where everything seemed impossible and yet it became one of your proudest moments?
Yes. There's two. The two hardest jobs I've ever produced was Big Pimpin' by Jay-Z, where we shot it in Trinidad, and a Stephen Klein Dior Rihanna ad at the Versailles Palace in Paris. Both very, very different variables, but equally like the hardest production jobs I've ever done in my entire life. And two of my most favorite.
And hard, why? In terms of
Big Pimpin',
complexity? Yeah,
Big Pimpin' was really hard because we were in Trinidad during Carnival and none of us had ever been there, So, and if you haven't, it's one thing to go shoot abroad and have never shot there before. There's always going to be a contingency of whatever cultures, crew that you don't know, etc. But then to shoot during Carnival, which is like
massive crowds,
massive crowds and massive just, problems with airfares. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong on that job. Including, when Jay-Z got on top of the truck and he was throwing money off of the truck and it caused a stampede in Carnival because the people are so poor there. So we had to hold hands and make a ring around our DP because the whole, this is, we were only shooting on film cameras. It was like a massive film camera on a, bodysuit, steady cam. And, it was just so crazy because, it's a very poor country. So you're throwing out $100 bills. Like people were trying to knock over the truck. It was just it was a lot.
Chaos.
It was complete chaos, that job. That was very hard. And the Rihanna Dior ad, the reason that was so complicated was because the Versailles is so massive. It's such a huge location. So for our production, it was the hardest job I've ever had to do because the trucks had to be practically on one side of the Versailles and then we were shooting over here. So it was just a constant where's the equipment? Where's the camera? Where's our AD? Where's, just mayhem.
And that production lasted how many days?
I can't remember. I think we shot that about 3 days. And Trinidad, we had to do a pickup shoot in Miami because Jay-Z hated the way the beaches looked. So it was like the never-ending job that just kept going. But look, it's one of the best, most iconic hip-hop videos of our time, you know?
As you've evolved from production to creating sanctuaries like Space Maavven, how has your definition of execution changed?
It's hard to really change the execution of a production because you're so limited to a schedule. I mean, mainly because it depends. It first starts with how much money is there to shoot it, which is going to dictate if you have 1 day or 2 days and what is your time per day. I mean, you can't work people past 16 hours and you try to, you're somewhere between 12 and 16. So I think that executing a film job it really does, to your point, it does have a very hard structure on some level because you can't just...
There's a process.
You can't just keep shooting, randomly for so long. And I think my lesson in this space, I mean, my production experience definitely sped the execution of this house up. People are blown away in the amount of time, starting at this house which had not a single stitch of design, furniture, nothing, to where it is now is huge.
It was a blank canvas.
It was a blank canvas, but it's just, it's different. Like, I think this house has taught me so much now too. Like, this is my new teacher because it's 300 years old. And I really learned how to not rush the relationship with a house that's this old. Doing little things step by step because it was a financial, just whatever. I had to wait to get more money to do a certain room or do a certain detail. And looking back, I'm always like, I know in the moment I was bummed because I was just like, oh, I just want to hurry up and see it done. But all those moments that I had to stop were times where I had to let the house breathe and accept a change or accept a design element. And I needed to live in the space to see, does this work? Does this actually create the joy that I want this house to have, There's two very different processes, but I do think my production experience has helped it. It helped it happen faster than I think a lot of, maybe other designers or ways that execution could have gone a little bit slower, in a house.
Talking about authenticity, how do you stay true to your vision when working inside systems that constantly ask you to compromise it?
Yeah. Definitely today with my practice, my meditation practice, and just many different things of reading and following different,
The
Temescal or the influential motivational speakers like Tony or Joe, or, I've definitely really wrapped my head around that timing is always divine. And even when we think that something didn't happen in the time that we wanted it to, or the way that it wanted to, it's really been, my lesson is to keep just like letting go of my expectations or the vision that I have on how something should go down or when it should go down, because there's always something around the corner that is coming that you can't see in a very different way. And it may come in look like it's in a different format even.
Yeah.
But anytime that I've questioned stuff in the last couple of years, when I see the result on the other side of things, it keeps reminding me like, so just stay calm, be patient, and trust that if the tension is there and the integrity is there, the solution is right around the corner. It just could look a little different.
And have there been times or moments when staying authentic has cost you opportunities?
Oh, for sure. For sure. Especially when I first started Maavven, I remember I made a very conscious decision, even though Catherine was my friend and I could have had like the best publicist in the business representing Maavven at that launch. I actually was like, I don't want to do any publicity. I want it to be basically Daft Punk was my muse, like the fact that if they had their helmets on, nobody, then you knew they were Daft Punk. But when they didn't have their helmets on and they were just out in the world as normal people, no one was talking to them. And unless you knew about it, unless you worked with them in the studio. And even then you wouldn't blow them up, And I remember taking that kind of mystery. And I said to Catherine, I was like, I'm not going to do any publicity for like the first 2 years or maybe even more. I just want this to be word of mouth. I want to be
more organic.
Sit down with people, tell them what I'm doing with Maavven, and let it grow from the grassroots, But I'll call you if I ever decide to do that differently. And I knew it took a lot of work at the beginning of Maavven. Like I had to do so many coffee meetings, breakfasts, lunches to explain what it was that I was creating. A lot of energy. But, and there was moments where I was like, damn, I'm probably missing out on so many big money jobs right now just because I'm sitting here not wasting time, but spending all this time to do this grassroots movement thing that I decided to do. And I questioned it a couple of times, but then...
And what pulled you into sticking into that decision of making it a grassroots strategy rather than going out and announcing?
Yeah, because I worked at two of the biggest production companies for a total of 12 years. And I already did that. Quantity, a lot of times over quality. Always quality if you had good artists, of course. But quantity was the name of the game. And I don't know, that really, like when I started Maavven and I didn't have to answer to anybody. I didn't have to answer to my boss to be like, how much money have we pulled in this month? You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, this is my decision. Okay, well, I'm gonna choose quality, and I don't want to work with people that I've worked with in this business that have not been nice or have not been, the experience has been whatever it's been. And I really made
the energy.
Yeah, and I really made some very, specific decisions that allowed me to really stay in that lane. But definitely, I know it probably cost me some big jobs at the time, but it didn't matter.
Authenticity roots us, but transformation reminds us that we can bloom again. And you've gone from creating for artists to creating to artists, spaces, systems, and sanctuaries. What internal shift made that evolution possible?
Definitely my time during COVID was the catalyst. It was dark night of the soul for me. And finding, I threw myself into meditation. I was like, I am not going to quit until I figure this thing out. And I just happened to be going to Joe Dispenza meditation retreats. And they were all happening here in Mexico. And coming to Mexico for a year, which I've been to Mexico many times, but it was always vacation and beaches, etc. Not really Mexico City. But because he was having his retreats here and it kept bringing me here, there was definitely the ley lines of Mexico. There's such a spiritual power in this country. And so, it was just part of my healing journey. And coming here really opened me up to discovering many new things, but also, just, a feeling of safety that I had here, through that process. And then this house came into my lap, all of it. And I knew that this was going to be the space that I healed myself. And by the way, the work is never done. But for those first 2 years when I lived in this house, it was my healing journey. And then I knew, even when I walked in the door of the courtyard, the first time I ever saw this house, I knew it was going to be mine, but I also knew that it was bigger than me. And I flashed back to this memory I had when I first started Maavven. I wanted a part of the Maavven brand. I wanted to create hotels for artists. And I was really thinking of the Chelsea Hotel, in New York back in the day when you'd have, Basquiat and, Patti Smythe and people all staying there, bumping into each other in the hallways and sometimes creating a song together or whatever that was. So a version of that. And so when I moved in and I really spent so much time in this house meditating and working out and working with different healers and all this stuff. And I was just like, okay, when I'm ready, when I've done
With my process.
My process, which will never be done, but it'll be done to a certain point. I know the house will provide an exit for me, and then it's my time to share it with others. I wrapped it with health and wellness options, but I was also very clear, even when I talked to the house, like, not every artist is going to come here and want to do the health and wellness stuff. And they don't have to, by the way. It could just be a place where they write or they get inspired or they come up with, they just create. I don't want to limit or put, any must-dos on the house or the space for an artist. But the crazy thing is, I'll say 9 out of 10, but it might even be like every single person that has come here has engaged with the health and wellness factor of this house. And that has been so, for me, just validating to be like, yeah, actually, artists are hungry for that in their lives. They're hungry for somewhere to go, that they feel safe, that they can, whatever their version of restoration might be. It could be a massage. It could be Reiki. It could be boxing. I don't know. It just could be
sitting under the tree and listening to the rain.
But restoration for everybody is different. But just really seeing how everybody has been so perceptive to it and just thirsty for it,
And how has this process of designing not just art, but now environments transformed your understanding of creativity itself?
This house and now, looking to do bigger spaces is the first time that I've allowed myself to be the artist. And never, because I worked with so many big, amazing, creative artists. I just felt like my only job was to facilitate their work and never allowed myself to be in that position. And it is funny because I've thought about it, like even when I was talking about it earlier with you, when I was thinking of my little 21-year-old self making that decision to drive to LA, and not knowing what any position was actually called or what, people did, like what was their job. I didn't know what a producer did in film. I had no idea. But I had this desire to be on the more creative side. I had a desire to be an artist, and then I just kind of fell into this other position for my whole career. So like now looking around here and just thinking like, oh yeah, that was my idea. And that, that mural, that painting, or, like really feeling confident that I do too have an artist side to myself. Absolutely.
And what version of yourself are you leaving behind as you enter this new chapter?
The version of myself that feels or has put so much pressure on myself to be the provider. I've definitely taken a whole new relationship with money during this process. Like just, again, letting go, honestly, like letting go of what people think, letting go of the pressure society has on material gain that creates a statue for yourself, or where you fall in the, I just don't care about that stuff anymore.
You're feeling a checklist to be a part of the expectations of others.
And that was just something that actually my friend just said to me the other day. He was like, when you let the art flow, the money flows too. The money goes, or it's what Joe Dispenza says, where your energy goes is where energy flows. And so you can kind of break that up in a couple different ways. But I just really I don't feel the need now. I don't have this like pecking order of what I have to do to climb the ladder. I'm not about climbing the ladder anymore. I'm just about creating and letting that will have the magnetic energy to bring the right people that need to experience it.
And when you imagine an artist waking and walking into Space Maavven for the first time, what do you want them to feel?
I've already seen it. It's pretty awesome. Because I live, next door now, and I've can hear when the artists pull into the courtyard and they don't know where they're staying, and it definitely doesn't look like what's in here from the street. And then I just hear like, wow, my God, like they walk in and it's just like so much excitement and so much like, what is this place,
And when they stay in a regular hotel, they don't have that experience.
No.
You've spent your life behind the camera, building platforms for others. What does empowerment mean for you now, both as a creator and as a woman?
It's something that in my career, I've always been working to empower others, to empower artists to step up into their potential and their vision. Definitely for women. I mean, not even meaning to. When I did the roster at Maavven, I had never counted how many women I had on the roster versus the men until I did my first interview like 3 years after I had the company. And one of the questions from the editor was, so why did you you have more women than you have men on your roster. What was your decision around that? And I was like, on the phone, and I was like, I do. And I had to like pull up my website and I was like counting the female names. And I was like, oh my God, I do. Like out of 22, I think I had like 17 or something. It was a crazy number. And I told her, I was like, actually, that was not a conscious decision. I've always made decisions based on the person and their vision and the art. And that's it. I only signed people that I loved what they were about and what they wanted to do. I had no idea I was signing that many women, to be honest. But that's so cool that I did, But it really wasn't a conscious decision. So I know that there's so much, of course I love being a woman in this position, and I hope that I do out of my story that helps empower other women to not be scared to jump into an industry where, most industries we are at a smaller percentage, especially in leadership. But I don't think, I don't know. I just don't think I don't think decisions should be made based on
gender,
a gender or just hitting a mark on what outer appearance looks like. I think it's just, for me, my goal would be just to continue to inspire people to believe in themselves and to believe in your vision. And then wherever that leads you, just go for it. You don't have to live by the rules. You can break them.
You can write them.
You can write them. Maybe not break them is the right word. You can write them.
How do you see the next generation of creatives redefining success, and how do you want to support that evolution?
We just live in such a different world where the capability to create stuff can be done very quickly with just digital tools and not actually encouraging people to take the time to learn their craft, right? Like the generation I come from with filmmakers and photographers, like the David LaChapelles and the Stephen Kleins and the Annie Leibovitz and all those amazing, iconic photographers. You talk to any of them. They went to school for 15, 20 years as a creative to really learn and craft, like what was their lighting going to be? How, David LaChapelle's lighting is very different than Stephen Klein's lighting. It's very different from Helmut Lang. It really...
They studied.
Spent and studied to learn their craft on those very key visual elements that made them stand out. Depth of field and camera, the lenses and all that stuff. We don't even really have lenses anymore that people shoot on, and now with AI, that's a whole other situation. So I don't know. I feel like, I also think things go in a circle. And so when we see saturation in any one given point, it actually creates the desire to come back to one, right? So it's like, I was there when film turned into digital. I thought I would I was like, there's no freaking way everyone's gonna start shooting on a digital camera. That seems crazy. And camera houses were paying cinematographers, be like, please, please, please just shoot on this digital camera. We'll give it to you for free for your project or whatever. Now it's like, you're so lucky if you can even try to get a film budget put across for any campaign. Nobody wants it anymore. Brands are like, we need to shoot on digital. We want 1,500 options of photographs. We don't want 10. Like what used to happen, you hired Stephen Klein, you've only got a certain amount of images because everything had to be perfect for that one shot. So we're so far away from that now, from even a creative process way. But I do want to encourage young creatives to look back at that earlier process in time study. Try not to use those tools that are out there right now. And I do think that just like vinyl has come back, you know what I mean? Like, I think that the creative process from that kind of, and it will be different. It will never be the same, of course. But I think there is like some kind of like, it's almost like a mixture of modern with ancient mythology. Like, how can you take those two worlds and make a mashup that's specific to you, but you don't have to be so extreme in going all the way back to the beginning of time, but also like, how can you, maybe limit yourself and really challenge yourself to not just go the easy route.
No, but through study and observation, learn and create your own voice, your own style, your own sound. It comes through discovering, and observation comes through, discovery comes through observation.
Correct. The artist always comes first for me. It's always been, and it will be, no matter what iteration of Maavven becomes. It's something that I also had to let go of because COVID really rocked my company at the time, which was a management company. And now I've really come into just letting go, A, but B, being like, okay, just because it's not that anymore, it's not me in LA, it's not me having a management office and signing artists and I'm not doing all the same things that I used to do. But it doesn't mean that Maavven can't exist. It can just have a new iteration. It's become physical spaces. That's all that's happened. Yeah. Now, like I was always working for the artist and to get them to be successful or to tap into their true creative vision. I can still do that, but just with a different set of glasses on in a different way by supporting them in health, in their well-being, Yeah,
and the importance of balance and having the peace of mind to be able to take a breath. Mm-hmm. And meditation is not just about disconnecting, but it's also about observing and getting grounded into that purpose. Well, Coleen, I'm so grateful for your generosity, for your friendship, for hosting us here in your home, in this beautiful space. It feels like a home away from home every time we come here. And seeing the evolution of your vision and being a part of it has been and is a true privilege for me. Before we finish, we have a closing part. I love music. You're a music lover as well. I'd love to know what your playlist of a game changer is. What's that song that truly wakes you up and empowers you?
Well, honestly, I'm a massive Whitney Houston fan. And Whitney moves me like nothing. I got the honor to work with her twice before she passed away. I just think there's nobody ever like her. Her voice is just so incredible. So How Will I Know? I want to dance with somebody.
Just I want to dance with somebody.
Yeah, just like, I don't know. When I hear Whitney and How Will I Know? How Will I Know? Yeah. She just makes me happy,
Makes you smile.
Yeah, it makes me smile. Forever, Madonna was a huge, big part of my life as far as like, the inspiration of Madonna's career at the beginning, her early days, like Holiday. I don't know, it's like really just good songs that make me smile.
And if we were finishing production right now of the documentary of these first chapters of Coleen's life, and we were to choose the song for the credits, what song would you choose?
Higher Love.
Higher Love, Kygo.
Kygo and Whitney.
I love it. I love it. So Whitney is a constant.
That's it. Yeah, that's my song.
Oh, Coleen, I'm so grateful and blessed of having your presence, your story, and sharing it, because I've heard so many beautiful stories that you've shared with me that one of the motivations of creating Game Change has been this privilege I've had to learning and having these experiences with great people like you, and obviously having this will to share it with the world. And I'm really, really grateful for your time and for your generosity.
Well, I'm really grateful for you too. And it's so awesome to see you pulling this dream. You know, I've heard you talk about this before it happened, and now to see it in fruition is just incredible. And
Thank you so much.
So thank you for including me.
So thank you for watching this episode, our first episode in English. If you liked it, please share it and subscribe. And we'll see you next week here in Game Changers.